One evening, I realized that we were running low on groceries, so I decided to quickly go to the nearby supermarket before it closed at 10 p.m. I grabbed my car and rushed to the supermarket, determined to finish shopping before it shut down. Upon entering the supermarket, I grabbed a shopping cart and started collecting groceries, including juices and sweets for the kids. As I was walking through one of the aisles, a tall man wearing a hooded coat accidentally bumped into me. He apologized in a deep voice, and I reassured him that it was okay. The man glanced at my shopping cart and asked me where he could find a particular type of chips, as he believed they were out of stock. I described to him where I had found them, and then continued my shopping, hoping to complete it before the supermarket closed. The man continued to follow me silently, occasionally slowing down his pace to see where I was heading. I felt uneasy about his constant presence. Nonetheless, I grabbed my shopping cart and headed to the checkout counter to pay the bill and return home. After quickly paying the bill, I exited the supermarket and went to the garage to retrieve my car. To my surprise, I noticed another car following me. I increased my speed and headed straight home. The car persisted in tailing me closely, but when I stopped in front of my house, I couldn't spot it anymore. I immediately informed my husband about the situation, and he looked out the window to check if anyone was outside. My husband noticed a car parked on the other side of the house, all its lights turned off. He decided to investigate, but when he went outside, the car was nowhere to be found. However, 3 days later, as we were getting ready for bed, we heard a strange noise outside the house. I asked my husband to look out the window and see what was happening. He spotted a person wearing a hooded coat attempting to open the side door of our house. My husband grabbed a baseball bat and demanded the intruder to leave in a loud voice. Startled, the person quickly fled upon hearing my husband's voice. We immediately contacted the police and provided them with a description of the person who had pushed me at the supermarket. However, we never saw that individual again since that day. Nonetheless, we lived with a sense of unease inside our home for a long time. I work as a security guard in a large supermarket in this city. My shift starts at midnight and ends at 6 o'clock in the morning. Usually, another security guard and I are present during the night shift. I primarily focus on guarding the back area of the supermarket, while my colleague is responsible for the front part. We spend most of our time outside since we don't enter the supermarket, as it tends to be dark inside during the night. On this particular night, while I was sitting near the back door of the supermarket, I heard some noises coming from inside. I immediately headed towards the source and started calling out for my colleague, Jack, who was with me on this shift. I shouted his name loudly, searching for him, but I couldn't find him. I went to the front area to make sure he was there, but to my surprise, he wasn't present. I called him on the phone, unsure of his whereabouts, and he informed me that he wouldn't be coming that night as he was feeling tired. Hearing this, a mix of curiosity and fear filled me. Where were those sounds coming from inside? I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously entered the supermarket to check the aisles and ensure there was no intruder. As I slowly and hesitantly inspected each aisle, I was taken aback when I reached the snacks aisle. While examining it, I noticed a person staring at me from the other end. Horror and trembling overcame me, but I tried to maintain composure and yelled, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" However, he disappeared and started running in one direction. I attempted to follow him through the front aisles, shouting and demanding that he leave. In each aisle, though, I found him just before I reached it. It seemed like he was always a step ahead. So, I decided to switch my strategy and screamed at him while moving towards the opposite direction. "Get out of here! Get out!" Suddenly, in one of the aisles, I saw him heading towards me, running at high speed. I quickly retreated and rushed outside the supermarket to find myself in a wider, somewhat illuminated area where I could see him. He exited through the door, got into his car, and swiftly drove away. Those terrifying moments marked the end of my experience at that job. My name is Amelia, and I work at a large supermarket while studying. I couldn't afford to cover my tuition fees, so when I found out that the school schedule had changed, I went to the supermarket manager and asked for leave on Mondays and Tuesdays. However, he refused and offered to switch my morning shift with an evening one. I declined the idea of an evening shift, but he insisted. With no other option, I agreed so as not to lose my position at work. When I arrived at the supermarket at precisely 12 o'clock, I met my colleague Rose, who had just finished her shift. We exchanged a quick conversation, and then she left. As I entered the supermarket, there was no one there, which was strange. There were no other employees or even a manager in the branch. This was highly unlikely for a supermarket of that size to be left unattended under the management of a 20-year-old girl like myself. After a few minutes, a tall, bald-headed person arrived. I approached him and asked if he was the night manager. However, he replied with a different question, asking if I was new here. I replied that I wasn't new, but it was my first time working the night shift. He shook my hand without introducing himself and asked me to enter the storage area to clean some shelves. He headed towards the exit door. As I made my way to the storage area, I heard a sound that seemed like someone was doing something with the exit door. I didn't know if they were closing it or opening it. I proceeded to the storage area, and upon entering, I found another person there. He greeted me with a smile and said, "I'm John, the night manager." I told him that I thought the person outside was the manager, and I described the person to him. He asked me with surprise, "Any other person?" I replied, pointing out the person outside, and he asked me to stay in the storage area while he went to check the identity of the other person. After a few minutes, I heard a voice at the storage door. I felt terrified and asked who it was. The person replied, "I'm John, the night manager. Open the door." I opened it, only to be shocked to see him holding a gun. We were both frightened, but luckily, he didn't notice us. We immediately called the police for help. When the police arrived, a battle broke out between this man and the officers, which ended with his death. We still don't know why he locked the doors on us.